Hi dear students, in the last class we had started with the third chapter, Across the Fence, and today we will continue our story discussion. You may take page number 26, and in the last class we had seen that there develops a conversation between Samuel, a Jewish boy, and Bruno, a German boy. And Bruno wanted to cross the fencing and explore the things happening there, and Samuel wanted to find out his father. So here Bruno is ready to cross the fencing and reach the place where Samuel was standing. But before that, Samuel noticed that Bruno was wearing a boot, and Samuel asked him to remove the boot. And after this, what happens? Take page number 26. Bruno sighed, but he knew that his friend was right. He took off the boots and his socks and left them beside the pile of clothes on the ground. So he understood that there is no other choice. He has to remove the boot. So Bruno removed the boot and he just obeyed the words of Samuel. And he removed the boot and the socks, left them beside the pile of clothes on the ground. At first it felt horrible, putting his bare feet into so much mud. They sank down to his ankles, and every time he lifted a foot, it felt worse. But then he started to rather enjoy it. So first time he put the foot there in the mud, then it was something very horrible for Bruno because it was the first time he was putting his foot in the mud. So he felt horrible, but as he walked, he enjoyed walking there on the mud. Then Samuel reached down and lifted the base of the fence, but it only lifted to certain height, and Bruno had no choice but to roll under it, getting his stripped pyjamas completely covered in mud as he did so. So then Samuel, he just lifted the fence, while then only Bruno can come to his place. But he was not able to lift the fencing more than enough. Okay, just little he lifted, and after that it was not possible for Bruno to come directly under the fencing. So he rolled under the fencing and he reached to Samuel. And then what happened? His pyjamas completely covered with the mud. Since he rolled down under the fencing, then his pyjamas was covered with the complete dirt and mud. He laughed when he looked down at himself. He had never been so filthy in all his life. It felt wonderful. Filthy means dirty. In his life, he had been never so much dirty or filthy, and he felt it was something wonderful. And then here you should understand that now Samuel and Bruno are on the same side of the fencing. Before that, both are separated with the fencing, but now they are standing on the same side. Samuel smiled too, and the two boys stood awkwardly together for a moment, unaccustomed to being on the same side of the fence. Okay, so now both of them smiled and they looked awkwardly each other. Why? Because it is the first time they are standing in the same side of the fencing. Before that, what was happening? One boy is standing on one side and the other person was standing on the other side. So this is the first time they were standing in the same side. Bruno had an urge to give Samuel a hug, just to let him know how much he liked him and how much he had enjoyed talking to him over the last year. Here, Bruno, once he reached Samuel's place, then he had an urge to hug Samuel and make him to know how much Bruno loved and liked Samuel and how much he had enjoyed talking to him for last 1 year. And Samuel also felt the same thing. Samuel had an urge to give Bruno a hug too, just to thank him for all his many kindness and his gifts of food and the fact that he was going to help him find Papa. And here Samuel also wanted to give a hug to Bruno. For what reasons? Because of the kindness, because of the gifts of food, and finally the fact that Bruno is going to find out Samuel's Papa. Neither of them did hug each other, and instead they began the walk away from the fence and towards the camp. But They did not hug each other, but they just walked away from the fencing together. It didn't take long to get where they were going. In one corner, Bruno could see three soldiers who seemed to be in charge of a group of about 20 men. They were shouting at them. Some of the men had fallen to their knees with their heads in their hands. So they reached near to the concentration camps where the soldiers and the prisoners were there. And then what Bruno saw there, three soldiers were in charge of one group. Okay, the 20 prisoners are there and three soldiers there. And these soldiers were shouting at the prisoners, these 20 people, the Jewish people, and some of these people, they were fallen down and the soldiers were laughing at them, and these men had fallen to their knees with their heads in their hands. In another corner, he could see more soldiers standing around and laughing and looking down the barrels of their guns, aiming them in random directions but not firing them. Then Bruno saw that some soldiers were standing there and they are laughing and looking down the barrels of their guns and aiming towards them but not shooting them. And in fact, everywhere he looked, all he could see was two different types of people, either happy, laughing, shouting soldiers in their uniforms, or unhappy, crying people in their stripped pyjamas. Everywhere Bruno looked, he found two types of people. The one is that very happy, laughing, shouting soldiers. And another category, the second category of people, unhappy, crying people in their stripped pyjamas, the Jewish people. I don't think I like it here, said Bruno after a while. After seeing all these horrible things, Bruno said that I don't want to stand here. I don't like this place. Then Shamuel also said that I also don't like to be in this place. And then Bruno says that I want to go home. Take next page number 28. When Bruno said that he wants to go home, then Shamuel stopped walking and stared at him. But Papa, he said, you said you would help me to find him. So you already promised me to find out my Papa, so don't go, Shamuel said to Bruno. So Bruno kept his word, and the two boys spent an hour and a half searching the camp looking for evidence. Kept his word. Okay, he just wanted to keep his promise. Okay, so he was ready to keep his promise. So what they did, they just 1.5 hours searching and finding out evidence for Shamuel's Papa. But they weren't sure exactly what they were looking for. But Bruno kept stating that a good explorer would know it when he found it. So actually these two boys, they were not having any idea what they were doing and what kinds of evidence they are going to collect. But Bruno was keeping confidence that a good explorer will know the things only once he found that. But they didn't find anything at all that might give them a clue to Shamuel's Papa's disappearance, and it started to get darker. Even though they searched for many hours, they did not get any evidence about the disappearance of Shamuel's Papa, any clue about Shamuel's Papa and the day. And it was started to get darker. Then what Bruno said to Shamuel, I am sorry Shamuel, Bruno said eventually. Finally, Bruno said that, okay, I am sorry Shamuel, eventually means finally. Shamuel nodded his head sadly. He wasn't really surprised. But it had been nice having his friend over to see where he lived all the same. And Shamuel expected that because he already tried many times to find out his Papa and it was unsuccessful. So he was not surprised by the answer of Bruno. But in a way, Shamuel was happy, or it was something very nice for Shamuel to spend some time with Bruno, and his friend Bruno visited his place where Shamuel lives. I think I ought to go home now, said Bruno. Will you walk back to the fence with me? So Bruno wanted to go back to his home. So he asked Shamuel whether will you come with me to the fence. Shamuel opened his mouth to answer, but right at that moment there was a loud whistle, and 10 soldiers surrounded the area in which Bruno and Shamuel were standing. In order to give an answer, Shamuel opened his mouth at the right that moment. At that right moment, what happened? A loud whistle was there, and suddenly the soldiers surrounded the area, and Samuel and Bruno were standing inside that area. What is happening? Whispered Bruno. What is going on? It happens sometimes, said Samuel. They make people go on marches. So Bruno was surprised and little bit afraid. He just asked Samuel, what is going on here? Then Samuel said, sometimes it happens and they make us to march. Then Bruno said, marches. Said Bruno, shocked. I can't go on march. I have to be home in time for dinner. So Bruno is little bit afraid and shocked, and he says that I can't go for the marches because I have to be there at home before dinner. Said Samuel, putting a finger to his lips. Don't say anything or they get angry. So then Samuel said Bruno that keep quiet. Don't speak anything. Otherwise the soldiers will get angry and we do not know what will they do to us. The whistles blew again, and this time the group of people from their part of the camp, about 100, started to march slowly together with Bruno and Samuel held together unseen in the center. So again the whistle was there, and the group of 100 people, maybe the Jewish people, from their part of the camp, about 100, started to march slowly together. So Bruno, then Samuel, then 100 people, they started to march slowly, and with Bruno and Samuel held together unseen in the center. It was not possible to see each other because it already got dark and it was not possible to see each other, but they held their hands very tight. There was some sort of disturbance toward the back where some people seemed unwilling to march, but Bruno was too small to see. All he heard were loud noises, but he couldn't make out what they were. So, while walking or marching, Bruno suddenly noticed that at the back side some disturbance are happening because some people are not willing to participate in the march, but Bruno couldn't see anything because he was so small, and whatever the noises or the sound, that also Bruno couldn't recognize. Does the marching go on for long? He whispered because he was beginning to feel quite hungry now. So Bruno was upset and he is becoming hungry, and he is asking Samuel that whether it will go for a long time. I don't think so, said Samuel. I never see the people after they have gone on a march, but I wouldn't imagine it does. So then Samuel said, I think this march won't go for a long time, but one point he said there, I have never seen the people after they have gone on a march. Once they go for a march, I have never seen. You just imagine what may happen to such a kind of people, those who are going for march. They are sent to the concentration camp to be killed. So they never return to the place. So that is why Samuel says that I never see the people after they have gone on a march. But I wouldn't imagine it does. So this time, I hope that it won't happen. Bruno frowned. He became very serious. Frowned means very serious. He looked up at the sky and he heard thunder overhead. The sky seemed to grow even darker, almost black, and rain poured down even more heavily than it had that morning. Bruno closed his eyes for a moment and felt it wash over him. Suddenly, the raining started, and Bruno heard the thundering sound and everything, and he felt that the rain is more compared to the morning, and he felt that it is a time to wash over him, the rainwater. That is it, he said to Samuel, I am going to catch a hold out here. I have to go home. So Bruno said to Samuel again that, okay, if I stand here, I am sure that I am going to get cold or fever, so I have to go home. But just as he said this, his feet brought him up a set of steps. As he marched upon, he found there was no more rain coming down anymore, because they were all piling into a long room that was surprisingly warm and must have been very securely built, because no rain was getting in anywhere. In fact, it felt completely airtight. So, as he spoke all these things, then he understood that he was just climbing upon a stairs. Okay, now there is no rain at all. And he was standing outside, and because of the darkness outside, he couldn't see anything. While the conversation, while he was talking with Bruno, talking with Samuel, then he understood that he was just climbing on a step, okay, a set of steps. And as he marched, he understood that there is no rain because they were in a particular room, a long room, and that room was very warm and it has been secured. Okay, securely means solidly. It was securely built and there was no rain at all. Inside the room there was no rain at all, and in fact it felt completely airtight. The meaning it is given, not allowing air to pass through. So the room was completely airtight and it was secure and there is no possibility of rain inside. Well, that is something, he said. Glad to be out of the storm for a few minutes at least. So Bruno was happy. Okay, it is a good place because at least I am out of this rain. Okay, now no rain and it won't affect and it won't give me cold or fever. So spending time inside this room, it is quite good. And he was not able to see anything there. Then Samuel gathered himself very close to Bruno and looked up at him in fright. Then Samuel just gathered himself very close. Okay, he just went very close to Bruno and looked up at him in fright. With fear, he looked at Bruno because Samuel understood that something is going to happen. I am sorry, we didn't find your papa. Then Bruno said to Samuel that, okay, we couldn't find your papa, sorry for that one. It is all right, Samuel said. You are my best friend, Samuel, said Bruno. So then Bruno said to Samuel that you are my best friend and my best friend for life. So here you use your imagination. The story ends here. And after this, what happens to these two boys? Actually, both are there inside a concentration camp. And somehow they are trapped. Okay, while they were standing outside, suddenly the whistle was there. Then the soldiers took them to a concentration camp where the people killed, okay, by using poisonous gas or some other methods. So the fate of these two boys, they are going to get killed. And you understand, Bruno is a German boy, but somehow in order to find out the father of Samuel, he came to this area, the concentration camp. So he also trapped and he wanted to explore the things there at the other side of the fence, okay, here at the concentration camp, but he couldn't do anything. He was trapped. Both Samuel and Bruno, both were trapped and they are going to get killed. So please go through the story once again and go through the different words, the new vocabulary is given in your textbook, and write down the new words with the meanings in your textbook. And there in your textbook, the extras are given, the comprehension, A, B, C. Okay, all the questions you have to find out the answers. And once you finish writing the answers, you may send the answers to me on WhatsApp. Hope that the story is clear to you. Once again, go through the story, and if you are having any doubt, contact me. Thank you. Have a nice day.